Me right here on KBLA Talk 1580 as host of A More Perfect Union. We're on weekdays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, and from the White House to your house, we got you covered with compelling conversations from leaders on the front lines. We're also very much engaged with elevating the voices of experts that help us to make it make sense and dispel a lot of that misinformation that is out there. We are not in the business of providing you with more noise. Instead, we're in the business of providing you with news that you can use. And speaking of news that you can use, here are some of the biggest headlines that are trending today. Vice President Kamala Harris today seized on comments by former White House Chief of Staff John F. Kelly that Donald Trump meets the definition of fascist, urging voters to heed warnings from people who've worked with Trump that his beliefs are incredibly dangerous. You see, Vice President Harris has escalated her warnings about the threat that Trump poses to democracy in recent days, and her campaign has worked to highlight the vice president's support from Republicans and comments from former Trump officials about his conduct and stops across the nation. A packed final schedule this week has included visits to the 3 Blue Wall states with former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney and a CNN town hall in Pennsylvania happening tonight, followed by a rally in Georgia on Thursday and another rally in Michigan on Saturday and a trip to Houston, Texas on Sunday. And in other news, between the time it takes to process mail ballots and deal with provisional ballots in some battleground states, votes will not be fully tabulated on election night. Projections of who won a close presidential race might not come for days, similar to the 2020 election. Yet and still, we know that VP Harris, her campaign team, and some of Donald Trump's own allies say that they expect the former president to quickly declare victory on election night, even if the outcome is not yet settled in key swing states. Sounds like sowing chaos to me. It passes prologue that does not end well. In other news, we know that 2 members of Congress are pressing officials for answers after NBC News exposed failures to notify relatives of dead people whose bodies were used for medical research. The politicians also asked about compensation for those families. I'm talking about Representatives Jasmine Crockett and Mark Vesey, both Democrats from Texas. They made this request today in a letter to medical examiners in Dallas and Tarrant County, citing this NBC News investigation that found that the counties had provided hundreds of unclaimed bodies to the University of North Texas Health Science Center without obtaining consent from the deceased or their next of kin. The center dissected many of those bodies and leased out the parts to use by other medical schools, for profit research companies, and the Army. Ooh, I can't imagine what those families are going through. But this is also an example of what difference it can make when you have people in office that are willing to hold folks to account for their actions. We shall see where this goes. We'll continue to keep our eye on this. But in other election news, as Election Day approaches, campaigns are making their last-ditch efforts to court young voters. But those young millennials and older Gen Z voters born in the mid to late 1990s who went to the polls for the first time in 2016 say they're exhausted and disillusioned. They face 3 election cycles where the stakes seem massive. The candidates don't feel fresh, and the Republican nominee has remained the same. And speaking of the election, there are some questions as to whether or not the GOP polls are being rigged. They're rigging the averages in Trump's favor. Polling by right-leaning firms have exploded this cycle. And maybe they want to be accurate, or maybe they're trying to create a sense of momentum for Donald Trump. This story has really been heavy on my mind today, so much that I've actually reached out to polling experts to make it make sense. And they tell me that, yeah, it's true. This thing is happening. Last month, a GOP-friendly polling firm presented itself and its data in a highly unusual way. Rather than maintain a nominally neutral public-facing profile, this pollster acted more like a cavalry brigade for Donald Trump's campaign, that is. And the firm did so explicitly, openly, proudly. You see, it all went down in mid-September at a time when 538 polling averages showed the slightest of leads for Kamala Harris in North Carolina, a must-win state for Trump. Her edge was short-lived. You see, the averages moved back to favoring Trump, and Quantis Insights, a GOP-friendly polling firm, took credit for this development. When a MAGA influencer celebrated the pro-Trump shift on X, formerly known as Twitter, Quantis' account responded, "You're welcome." You see, the implication was clear. A Quantis poll had not only pushed the averages back to Trump, this was nakedly the whole point of releasing the polls in the first place. The proponents of what might be called the red wave theory of polling, this was a blatant example of a phenomenon that they see as widespread. A flood of GOP-aligned polls has been released for the precise purpose of influencing the polling averages. In the view of these critics, the Quantis example only made all of this more overt. You see, dozens of such polls have been released since then, and they're in no small part responsible for tipping the averages and the forecast towards Trump. And so, all this talk about, oh, but the polls said, and the polls are really tight. Are they really? I know veteran Democratic pollster Cornell Belcher has said and tweeted quite often, "Get off the polar coaster. Get off. Get off the polar coaster." And so we're going to do our best to do exactly that. We're going to get off the polar coaster, but that also means get off the couch. Get off the couch and make your voice heard. You can go to iwillvote.com to register to vote, or to check the status of your voter registration, or just to make a plan to get it done. And in a lot of states right now, you can get it done early. You can vote early. You can do all that stuff. And so we're going to continue to talk about this and more with our guests this hour, particularly talking about white suburban women voters. We talk a lot about Black voters and what they're going to do, and moderate Republicans, some of the orphaned Nikki Haley voters, as I often refer to. We talk about what they're going to do. But what are white suburban women voters going to do? We're going to talk to Liz Becker. She's a veterans communication staffer. She's with Moms Demand Action in Nevada. And we're also going to talk with Tracy Snipes. She's a high school teacher in Georgia, where I was just this past weekend covering Vice President Kamala Harris during her birthday weekend. We're going to help them. We're going to have them help us, rather, make it make sense. You are streaming and listening to Areva Martin in real time. I'm your guest host, Dr. Nicordelai Corte. More with Liz and Tracy when we come forward.
In real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
Downy Rinse and Refresh. Break up with stinky clothes.
Rinse it out.
Every now and then I get a little bit tired of the stinks that just will never come out.
Oh, Downy in the rinse straight.
Every now and then I rinse it out. One wash and it delivers. One wash, it smells so clean. Downy Rinse and Refresh, it's a dream.
Downy Rinse and Refresh. Fights odor in just one wash. Guaranteed.
Girl, I have a secret. When I get stressed out, I get sweaty. That's why I use Secret Clinical Antiperspirant. It's like my own secret weapon. For 72 hours, I get Secret's strongest protection against sweat caused by stress, heat, and activity, because you know how crazy life can get. Plus, it's made with advanced odor fighters that don't just cover up smelliness. They help prevent it from happening in the first place. Believe me, if I weren't wearing Secret, I'd be a hot, smelly mess. Thankfully, Secret works.
Moments like my daughter telling me a new joke mean a lot to me. But after being diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer, or MBC, which is breast cancer that is spread to other parts of the body, they mean even more. I take Ibrance, palbociclib.
Ibrance 125 milligram tablets with an aromatase inhibitor is for adults with HR-positive, HER2-negative NBC as the first hormonal-based therapy. Ask your doctor about Ibrance and visit Ibrance.com. Ibrance may cause low white blood cell counts that may lead to serious infections. Ibrance may cause severe inflammation of the lungs. Both of these can lead to death. Tell your doctor right away if you have new or worsening symptoms, including trouble breathing, shortness of breath, cough, or chest pain. Before taking Ibrance, tell your doctor if you have fever, chills, or other signs of infection, liver or kidney problems, are or plan to become pregnant, or are breastfeeding. Common side effects include low red blood cell and low platelet counts, infections, tiredness, nausea, sore mouth, abnormalities in liver blood tests, diarrhea, hair thinning or loss, vomiting, rash, and loss of appetite.
If you're facing an unexpected financial emergency, you need WeFixMoney.com. WeFixMoney.com can help you get up to $3,000 fast. Simply fill out the form and get an answer in 2 minutes. WeFixMoney.com is free to use, available 24/7, and has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau. Trust the name you know. WeFixMoney.com. For emergency cash up to $3,000, type WeFixMoney.com directly in your browser. That's WeFixMoney.com.
There's no time like the present. Let's get back to more of Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union. I'm sorry. You are listening and streaming Areva Martin in real time. I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte, the host of A More Perfect Union, also heard here on KBLA Talk 1580, weekdays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. From the White House to your house, we got you covered with some of the day's trending headlines and compelling conversations from leaders on the front lines. And speaking of compelling conversations with leaders on the front lines, I'm really delighted to welcome our two guests here today. Tracy Snipes, she's a high school teacher in Georgia and a community organizer. We're delighted to have you here with us today, as well as Liz Becker, who is also a community organizer and a veteran communication staffer, helping us make it make sense when it comes to white suburban women voters. Welcome, ladies.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
And so just so our audience has a sense of the topic at hand, I know The Guardian and so many other publications have reported on this. The big question is, will white women abandon Republicans and vote for Kamala Harris? The Guardian has reported that white female voters have been the backbone of the GOP for decades, but polls indicate that their support for the party may erode this November, thanks to younger white women who are moving left at breakneck speed. You see, in the weeks after the 2016 presidential election, after Donald Trump stunned the world, defeating Hillary Clinton, media outlets seized on white women to explain his shocking win. 47% of white women voted for Trump, while 45% backed Clinton. This according to an analysis of validated voter files by the Pew Research Center. Trump's success with white women highlighted a longstanding truth. This group votes for Republicans. And over the last 72 years, a plurality of white women have voted for the Democratic candidate in only 2 presidential elections. In 1964, when Lyndon Johnson won 44 states, and in 1996, when Bill Clinton ran in a 3-way race. Trump's lead with white women even grew in 2020 when 53% supported him. In contrast, 95% of black women voted for Joe Biden in 2020, along with 61% of Hispanic women. That's according to Pew. And so now that our audience is oriented to at least the history of white women and how they have voted in the past, Liz, I'll start with you. What hope should we have that the election that's less than 2 weeks away might be any different?
It better be. And thank you for having me, Dr. Nicordelais. Yeah, I have high hopes based upon what I'm seeing on the ground. But it's going to take a big shift in this group of women because, like you said, 47% and then 53% voting for Trump. It's super hard to believe, especially if you are not, in a battleground state and talking to some of these people. But I'm here in this suburban community outside Las Vegas. I live northwest of Las Vegas, and I will say that I have been cheered since Kamala, Vice President Harris, I should say, took over as the nominee. There was really just a doomsday sense on the ground inside organizations like mine, where we are working for progressive candidates, that Joe Biden was going to lose that election. And ever since Vice President Harris has been the nominee, there has just been so much enthusiasm and, people just standing in line for hours to go to the rallies. This weekend we had President Obama, and the diversity that you see in the room when you see who is coming out to these rallies in comparison to who is going to the Trump rallies, that he continues to have in our state and all swing states. I am confident that this is going to happen. We've got a lot of experts on the ground here in Nevada who, frankly, I don't think understand what's happening with early vote, because a lot of Republicans are coming out in early vote because the cult leader told them to. Basically, they before never trusted anything except election day, and we're just hoping that that's cannibalizing the vote on election day. And I knock a lot of doors, and I knock almost all nonpartisan doors. And this is the most joyful cycle that I have ever knocked doors. I was not expecting that. I was expecting a lot of vitriol since we have such a divided society. But people are excited to talk at the door this election cycle. And I think that we're going to do it. And like you said, it's going to take us, because it's been my demographic of people that have embraced the craziness of Trump. And I think that the turn away is happening, and that's what I'm looking forward to this election cycle.
And and door knocking is important. I know there's a lot of emphasis on from both campaigns in terms of some of the digital organizing work, the online organizing work, but really the key is surround sound. It's online and offline, and I know you're over there knocking doors in Nevada, where Areva Martin canvassed just this past week. Talk to us about any memorable exchange that comes to mind that sheds some light on Vice President Harris's potential to break through to white women suburban voters.
Yeah, so I get sent to apartment complexes a lot because I request them. And I was out 3 weeks ago at an apartment complex, and it was not a place I've ever canvassed before. It's in my district. I ran for office in 2020, so I've hit most of the doors in this district. But I had 2 separate women who were nurses answer the door. One of them was still in scrubs that she had come from work, and these were nonpartisan voters, not registered Democrats. And sometimes I brace at the door when I think that the conversation might be tough. But these women were so excited to go out and vote. And the candidate in my district is also a peer recovery mentor, and he is running on that platform of we need to do something about the mental health and addiction crisis in this country. And so we talked about what they see at work and how they know we need to put more money into mental health care. And they both shared with me that they are so excited that it's a change candidate. I think that a lot of the rhetoric on the other side is this is not a change candidate. You know, Vice President Harris is just a continuation of President Biden. But I don't believe that people on the ground actually think that. I think people on the ground do see her as a change candidate, and they see her as the person who supports policies that are going to move our country forward by addressing things that have been lingering in our country and not being addressed.
And we certainly know that there have been a number of polls out there that suggest that newly popular Harris is building on momentum. There's a poll out that suggests that VP Harris has an edge in terms of being viewed as the change candidate in this race, certainly compared to former President Trump. Tracy, I want to bring you into the conversation. You are a high school teacher in Georgia. I was on the ground in Georgia this past weekend for VP Harris's Georgia Blitz, where we have seen a record number of early voters. By the time I left, it was reported that over 1.3 million Georgians have cast their ballot early. Talk to us about how much of that enthusiasm you believe is being driven by white suburban women.
Well, I will say I think we were at the same rally this weekend. I was at the one in Atlanta, and it was absolutely amazing. And one thing I will say, much like your other guest mentioned, at the rallies, I've been to two, the mix, the diversity in the groups that are there was actually pretty amazing. Lots of white men, white women, black men, black women. Some were there in couples, some were there not. And it's just been really amazing to see the diversity that I am used to, having grown up in Atlanta. For me, for where I actually live, because I don't live in Atlanta, I live closer to Athens. And Athens in Georgia is a blue dot, but I'm in the county next to it that is almost completely red. Our voters will go about 70% red. What I will say I am seeing here is, even though we are a majority white county, I'm starting to see more people of color moving in, which is really a beneficial thing for our community. I'm also seeing fewer Trump signs than in the last two election cycles. That's not to say that there aren't any, but there are fewer, which is actually a positive for me. I'm seeing more Harris signs than I saw in the last two elections for Clinton and for Biden. So I think in my area, at least, one of the things that I think is really making inroads with voters is women's health care. Because here in Georgia, we have had a couple of women that we know of that have died because of this legislation. And that's very scary to people, no matter the color of your skin. If you know if you get pregnant, you cannot afford to travel to go and get an abortion, to take time off of work to go and get the health care that you need that you can't get in your own state, that your own doctor that you know and trust can't provide. That's really scary for people. And even though I've been a Democrat and been voting Democrat for a very long time, I am seeing some of these women that have not been Democratic voters going, wait a second, like this might actually impact me directly or my kids.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the very interesting stories coming out of Georgia, very interesting stories coming out of Nevada. We're going to dig into these stories a bit more, including some of the first-time voters that you've been talking to. Some of them might even be under your own roof. We'll talk about any insights they have to offer the conversation. Plus, there's a story in the Associated Press that caught my attention. In Battleground, Georgia, some poor people see no reason to vote, and this decision alone could sway the election. We're talking about white suburban women voters. And when we come forward, I want to also add a layer. What about poor people, poor voters, and the sway that they have in this election? I'm in conversation with Tracy Snipes, a high school teacher in Georgia, and Liz Becker, a veteran communications staffer and community organizer in Nevada. These are folks that are on the ground giving us their hot takes and more. You are streaming and listening to Areva Martin in real time. I'm your guest host, Dr. Nicordelai Corte. More when we come forward right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
When we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Testimony is underway in what is sure to be a closely watched trial in Kentucky. Former Louisville police officer Brett Hankinson is being retried in connection with a botched raid on Breonna Taylor's apartment in 2020. Detroit Lions wide receiver Jamison Williams is facing another suspension. ESPN reports Williams is set to be suspended 2 games for violating the NFL's performance-enhancing substances policy. Black patients are less likely than white patients to get a certain combination of medication to reduce pain after surgery. That's according to a study presented Sunday at the American Society of Anesthesiologists annual meeting in Philadelphia, which found Black patients are more likely to be prescribed opioids for pain. And 50 Cent is giving thousands of dollars to the Houston Children's Charity in Texas. In an Instagram post, the rapper revealed he raised $500,000 for the organization. Overall, the gala raised over $6 million, which is a new record. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
Enjoy the rest of your night. Get home safe. In West Covina's 10 East before Via Verde, watch for a stall blocking the right lane, and traffic is starting to get busy and heavy from Old Avenue. Back in Torrance, a 45-minute traffic jam from Santa Monica Boulevard is ahead on the 405 South before Western Avenue as a stall blocks the left lane. Accidents been cleared from Baldwin Park's 10 West before Baldwin Park Boulevard. Traffic in Hollywood also continues to run heavy over 20 minutes on the 101 South between Gower Street and Mission Road. And in Orange, on the 55 North Icatella Avenue, watch for an accident on the right shoulder with heavy traffic flow in the area.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. I started Blindster in 2010 in my garage after I overpaid for new blinds. I researched the industry, hired my mom, and 14 years later, we're one of the largest retailers of custom blinds in the U.S. Don't pay too much for new blinds. Go to Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
It's a milestone moment tonight for the Clippers franchise and Clippers Nation. The Clippers will play the Phoenix Suns in their regular season opener in their new home, the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. Capacity 18,000. The price tag for Clippers owner Steve Ballmer, $2 billion. For the first time in 25 years, the Clippers will not have to share a home with the Lakers. The only issue for the Clippers is a lack of star power tonight. Paul George has moved on to Philadelphia. Kawhi Leonard's sore right knee will sideline him for at least the first week of the season. Could be much longer. 10-time All-Star James Harden will be in the lineup, but he's 36. It still should be a fun atmosphere tonight in the Intuit Dome. 7 p.m. tip-off on ESPN. The Dodgers are making plans to honor Fernando Valenzuela before Game 1 Friday against the Yankees in the World Series. The legendary pitcher died Tuesday night at age 63. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on. Come on.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I know what the commercials mean. I also am looking and trying to figure something out. I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
climate justice, climate resilience. By any other name, we demand environmental justice in 2024 and beyond. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we don't black down.
This truck season, think about all the things you can do in a Chevy truck. You can even just with impressive towing, incredible bed and tailgate functionality, and multiple powertrains. Chevy Silverado, the first ever Silverado EV, Colorado and Tahoe have what you need to get things done. When you want to do it all, Chevy's got you. It's Chevy truck season. Get 0% financing on all 2024 Silverado 1500 pickups when you finance with GM Financial. Chevrolet, together let's drive. 0% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $27.78 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 9.3%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 10/31/24.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening and streaming. I almost did it again. Areva Martin in real time. I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte, host of A More Perfect Union right here on KBLA Talk 1580. You can hear my show at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern weekdays. From the White House to your house, we got you covered with some of the biggest headlines that are trending, headlines that matter to you. News, not noise. News, not noise. Also, we're intent on providing you with compelling interviews from leaders on the front lines and amplifying the voices of people in community. And speaking of amplifying such voices, we are here with Liz Becker. She is a veterans communication staffer and community organizer, joining us from the great state of Nevada. And we also have Tracy Snipes, who is a high school teacher in Georgia, and also related to not one, not two, but three first-time voters, I hear. Is that right, Tracy?
Yeah, all three of my kids voted for the first time. And in fact, I took my twin daughters with me this morning. I was going to go and vote because early voting's been open for a couple of weeks here in Georgia, and I was going to swing by after work because I drive by. But on my way, I called home and asked my daughters, hey, do y'all want to go and vote with me? And they were like, yes. And so I thought it was a really special moment for us to have, because this is quite possibly the election that's going to elect the first female president. And I thought it would be really special to be able to vote for that with my daughters.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And congratulations to the first time voters in your household. That's a very special experience. You never forget your first election. And you never forget sort of who shows up. And, you know, we started this conversation really raising the question about whether or not white women will abandon Republicans and vote for Kamala Harris. We know that if past as prologue, white women have a tendency to vote Republican. And I'm curious, Liz, as to, you know, what hope should we have this election cycle that white women as a voting bloc will get behind VP Harris, that they will break in favor of making history and electing the first woman president, that they will break in the interest of voting for a candidate that has a plan to that supports women's health care, that supports maternal health, that supports reproductive health. How big are those things as a factor, particularly for white suburban women?
I think those things are huge. I will say that I have a lot of people in my circle who consider themselves not political. And they lead with this in conversations. Like, they talk about how they're not political. And I think that they say it to me because they know I am very political and they want to kind of get me to not talk to them as much about politics. But after 2016, so many women that I know were angry because everyone just thought Hillary was going to win. I mean, I remember my daughter was 4 and I didn't even tell her how an election works. I left her that night and said, tomorrow we're going to have a female president elect. And like, she knew who Hillary Clinton was. And the next day when I went to pick her up at preschool, she said, the bad man won. I mean, and it blew my mind. And several of my Black female friends were like, welcome to this reality where we knew this, and you need to really like shift your thinking. And it really lit a fire under me and under so many women that I know to move out of, and I was never in the non-political space, but a lot of my friends really started being more vocal. And in Nevada, at least, we have had huge success. We had the first female majority legislature. We have the benefit of having amazing down ballot females on our ballots who are also going out into their neighborhoods and having these conversations. And 2022 was really interesting to me, to see how the turnout was going to go here in Nevada. And we just continued with that streak. We did lose our Democratic governor, but he was a man, and just female candidates up and down the ballot have really done well in Nevada. And I am so hopeful because of the energy that I see with that particular group of people. But what I will say is it is on white women. Shannon Watts, the founder of Moms Demand Action, has been saying this nonstop. It is on us to go into our spaces and to make people uncomfortable. I'm in a transracial adoption situation with my daughter, and I have people in my life who would consider themselves to be colorblind. Like, they would say this on purpose, which always makes me just want to retch, honestly, because if you don't see someone's color, that means you don't see them. You can see the color of someone's shoes. Of course, you can see the color of their skin, and you need to educate yourself about people's lives. And since that election in 2016, the opportunity to educate people in my life who do not have the life experience of knowing people that aren't white, honestly, people just live in their little worlds. That one-on-one conversation, that especially white women that come from families that are heavily Republican, those conversations have to be had over and over and over again. Several of my cousins who were raised by people in the Quiverful movement, like the movement of let's have as many white kids as we can to join the army of God. Like,
Oh, wow.
that's literally the movement that they're in, have turned away from that and have privately reached out to me to tell me they're voting for Kamala Harris.
Well, I mean, it really makes me think about all that talk about white replacement theory, right? And how baked in that is to this constituency of white women, white suburban women. And Tracy, I want to ask you to, tell us something that we don't know on the ground in Georgia that we're not talking enough about. As I mentioned earlier, there was an Associated Press article that came out recently that really shined a light on the battleground state of Georgia and how some poor people see no reason to vote and how that decision could sway this election. We know that there are a number of folks, particularly in Bibb County, where Macon is the largest city in Bibb County, and Bibb County, Macon, Georgia. That's actually where my grandmother was born, and it's where the majority of residents are Black, and 1 in 4 of its population lives in poverty. We know that more than 47,000 people in Bibb County were eligible to vote in 2020 and didn't, a figure roughly 4 times Biden's margin of victory across the entire state. And so while we've been talking about white suburban women, I think we should also talk about white women in rural Georgia and where things appear to be trending on the ground.
Well, I do live in a rural county. The one that I live in happens to be pretty wealthy, but we are right next door to Athens, Clarke County. I can't speak to Bibb County because until you said it was Macon, I wasn't sure where that was. But I will say, in our county, we do have people who are living in poverty. And in Clarke County, they have the highest concentration of people living in poverty of any county, I believe, in the United States. That may have changed, but I heard that at one point. When I was in school at UGA, I was taking a class where we were going out into the community and working with kids in the community. And we were taking them on a field trip to the botanical gardens. From UGA campus to the botanical gardens is maybe a 10-minute drive. But we could not drive them. We had to take public transportation because we didn't have, there were just reasons we had to take public transportation. It took us an hour to get there and an hour to get back. And the reason why I tell this story is because I remember thinking, if I had to make this trek to go to work and I had to count on that to go and vote and to go to the grocery store and to go to, that's hours every day that's spent on public transportation, which is great that it's there, but it's also a privilege thing to not have to rely on that. And so I think maybe sometimes it comes down to transportation. I've even heard online just today, I read somewhere that the programs that help drive people to the polls are completely inundated because it's really hard to get there. And in fact, that was referencing specifically Athens, Clarke County, because they have moved their early voting location. And now it is really hard to get to the early voting location. It's not as convenient. And because it isn't as convenient, people aren't going.
Wow.
As high of numbers.
And so this is all the more reason why folks should go to iwillvote.com to make a plan for how they're going to cast their ballot. If in-person voting is not an option for you, vote by mail voting may be an option for you as well. And so iwillvote.com is an important resource. And no matter how you vote, right? If you're voting Republican or Democrat, go to iwillvote.com. And they're going to provide you with the information you need to cast your vote and make your voice heard. When we come forward, I want to give both of our guests, Tracy and Liz, an opportunity to tell us something we don't know about what's afoot on the ground in Georgia, in Nevada. These are key battleground states that very much could decide who occupies the Oval Office for the next 4 years. In addition, this race may very well decide a lot of those down ballot races. We talk a lot about the race for president, but we don't talk enough about those races that are down ballot for members of Congress and the U.S. Senate. That's critically important. Gubernatorial races, races for state legislature, district attorney, school board, all of these offices together, when they work in concert, can deliver the change, in fact, that so many of our fellow Americans so desperately need. You're listening to Areva Martin in Real Time. I'm your guest host, Dr. Nicordelai Corte. More with Tracy and Liz when we come forward.
Talk 1580.
Tips to help improve basic steps for building a budget in 2024. Building a budget can help you achieve and reach your financial goals. With a budget, you can keep track of your spending, avoid and get out of debt, limit overspending, pay bills on time, and build solid savings habits. What's the best way to get started? Figure out how much to set aside for expenses like rent, mortgage, bills, groceries, and entertainment. Understanding your past financial habits can help you make the proper adjustments for your budget. Adjusting to a budget can take time as you work to find the right balance, but keep working on it. For more financial health tips, visit chase.com or stop by a local branch. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase & Company. With reported hate crimes rising in recent years, California has responded through outreach efforts across state government and in collaboration with community-based organizations for the launch of CA versus Hate. This non-emergency, multilingual hate crime and incident reporting hotline provides an anonymous reporting option for victims and witnesses of hate acts reported in 15 different languages through the online portal and in over 200 languages when calling the hotline. Report anonymously by calling 833-866-4283, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. or online at any time at cavshate.org.
An official message from Medicare. Couple more minutes and we'll start this month's book club.
You know, I usually love a plot twist, but this year I'm comparing my options during Medicare open enrollment.
You can't assume your current health or drug plan is the best one for you.
And you got to make sure your drugs are covered. That's important.
So is saving money. Review all your options at Medicare.gov. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way Black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like your style, though.
There's no time like the present. Let's get back to more of Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte, your guest host. You can also find me weekdays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern as host and chief White House correspondent for KBLA Talk 1580's A More Perfect Union. I'm also the author of Kamala, the Motherland, and Me. Check out my Amazon best-selling book, having covered VP Harris overseas in Africa last spring. I'm calling it required reading for this inflection point we find ourselves in world history. Liz, I want to invite you to take the first crack at this question. I want to invite you to share with us something that we don't know based upon what's happening on the ground in Nevada. I don't assume that we in the media get it right or get it right in real time. And so tell us something that we don't know that's happening on the ground in Nevada.
Yes. So something, especially that people that don't live here probably do not know, is that we elect our judges in Nevada. And we have a really strong cohort of Black female judges that have run in 2018, 2020, 2022, and continuing this year. And we have a lot of them have been trained in the Emerge Democratic Women's Training Program. Ashanti Golar comes here every year. And I am so proud of that in Nevada. we have a majority female judiciary. I believe our state Supreme Court is all female, or there's one man. The 3 people who are on the ballot this year are 3 women to be reelected. And my neighbor, I'm going to plug her, Jessica Smith Peterson, is a defense attorney in the public defender's office, and she is running for judge. And it's those down ballot races, like you mentioned, that are driving that turnout for Kamala Harris and all the ballot races above them. Stephen Horsford is my congressman, and I know that he spoke with Areva recently. He is the head of the Congressional Black Caucus. He was also the head of culinary here, and our turnout machine, there's nothing better than the turnout machine that we have with culinary and our other union brothers and sisters. And I think people are going to be really surprised at what happens in Nevada, especially considering that there's people just running around with their hair on fire, so worried about this Republican turnout in the early vote. But I think people are going to be really surprised to see what happens because of those down ballot races.
So it sounds like you are confident that the Democrats may deliver a win in Nevada, a win up and down the ticket. Is that what I'm hearing?
That is what I think. We have one of our senators on the ballot, but not the governor's race this year. That is Senator Rosen, and she's really heavily favored. I don't think we have to worry about her race. I know that people that aren't from here worry about it, but I'm not worried about it. So I think that all those down ballot races are going to do nothing but drive the turnout.
In our remaining minutes, Tracy, our resident high school teacher from Georgia, I know that you have built a pretty solid relationship, particularly with your Black male students in Georgia. We've been talking a lot about white women suburban voters, but we can't avoid the headlines related to getting Black men out to vote, particularly young Black men. What are you hearing from your Black male students, and what messages seem to be resonating with them now, only a couple weeks away from Election Day?
Typically, we avoid talking politics in the classroom because Georgia is a right to work state and we have to be really careful. But I did have one student who I adore, and he mentioned that he had just turned 18. And I said, "Oh, that's fantastic. You can vote now." And he said, "Yeah." And he said, and I thought that this was very interesting because he looked at me and he said, "No disrespect, but I don't think I can vote for her. I don't think she's ready to be president." And I was kind of surprised that he said that because I hadn't said who I voted for. I mean, I don't teach a topic where we talk politics. But I was just like, okay. I mean, I was so surprised that I was like, okay. So I just kind of walked away and started class and whatever. But later I was talking to one of my colleagues who I admire very much. And she is, she's a Black woman, and she has grown up here in the South as well. And I mentioned to her that I had this conversation and that I was really surprised. And she immediately said, "I'm not." And I was like, really? I mean, that blew me away that she said that she wasn't surprised at all. And I can't remember exactly what it was that she said about why she wasn't surprised. But she said, it is essentially, it's dangerous to think that just because the color of somebody's skin matches the candidate's color, that they're going to vote for that person. She said she's seeing a real, and maybe in part, this is better. I haven't really thought this through, so if I misspeak, my apologies. But maybe it's better that we are disconnecting from certain things about the candidate and looking maybe more at their platforms. But I also find that to be kind of a dangerous place because I have some of my white friends on Facebook who are posting things about how the clip from Kamala's rally where she said, "Y'all are at the wrong rally. You should be at the one down the street."
Yeah.
Well, it has been either doctored or misinterpreted or I don't know what. And people are saying that the person said Jesus is Lord. And she's like, "Oh, y'all are at the wrong place. Get on." or I'm paraphrasing, but that's very problematic in the religious right, which I mean, I'm in the Bible Belt. That's like super huge here. So if people are thinking that Kamala Harris is anti-religion, which I don't believe that she is, but that is what's being sold.
Yeah,
and it's a bit scary.
It is a bit scary, and we've got to make sure that we are careful about some of the mis and disinformation that is out there. It is extremely powerful, and whether you are a white suburban woman or a young Black man, and so many other folks in between, none of us are immune from the mis and disinformation machine. My thanks to Liz Becker, Veterans Communications staffer and organizer on the ground in Nevada. Also, Tracy Snipes, a high school teacher in Georgia. We love our teachers. We love our fellow Americans that are rolling up their sleeves and doing what they can from where they are. My thanks to both of you for joining us. You have been listening to and streaming Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte, your guest host. Areva Martin will be back tomorrow. Have a good day, everybody. Remember, go to iwillvote.com to